Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time of day it is when you're watching this. For me, it's 8:05 a.m. on this Friday morning, and we're back with another daily devotional video from the Psalms. Today, we're actually looking at Psalm 11, and it's a pretty short psalm, so I'm actually going to read just the whole psalm here, and then give a little commentary on it. And I'm probably going to touch on every verse because it's only 7 verses, not very long. This psalm actually, Psalm 11 here, is a pretty fitting psalm for today. Actually, as I read through it, I'm like, wow, this is a pretty relevant psalm for what we're the situation of our world and our nation specifically. That we're facing right now. So I'm just going to read here. Psalm 11 says this. It says, I trust in the Lord for protection. So why do you say to me, fly like a bird to the mountains for safety? The wicked are stringing their bows and fitting their arrows on bowstrings. They shoot from the shadows at those whose hearts are right. The foundations of law and order have collapsed. What can the righteous do? But the Lord is in his holy temple, and the Lord still rules from heaven. He watches everyone closely, examining every person on earth. The Lord examines both the righteous and the wicked. He hates those who love violence. He will rain down blazing coals and burning sulfur on the wicked, punishing them with scorching winds. For the righteous Lord loves justice. The virtuous will see his face. So again, we get a very common theme or structure of a psalm, beginning with a problem, expressing feelings, frustration, emotion. Life is never perfect. You're never going to find yourself in a situation where everything is good. If you ever are, having one of those really good days, just, a perfect day, and you think the world is perfect, you're only seeing things from your own perspective. You're definitely not aware of what's going on in the home next to you, the other side of town, in other parts of the world. There's no perfect days. There's always trouble in our world. But the psalmist begins at looking at what he sees, but then turns his attention to God and is reminded that God is eventually going to set everything right, that God will bring justice to our world. So let's start with verse 1 here. And this is actually, verse 1 is quite a verse. It says, I trust in the Lord for protection. So why run to the mountains or fly to the mountains for safety? And so in essence, it kind of sounds like when you read this, it's like, I trust God, so, why do I need to social distance, or why do I need to stay inside, or why do we need to shut down, or whatever. And I don't think that that's ultimately what the psalmist is talking about here. I think the psalmist is talking more about an attitude of the heart than actually taking wise precautions in life. Sometimes when we get in crises like this, or even if we get sick or face, maybe certain diseases or whatever, we as Christians, sometimes we like to, in these situations, default to faith and not wisdom. And, there's a lot of Christians that say, well, we have faith against the coronavirus. And, that sounds spiritual, but there's part of me that just wants to say to them, do you resort to faith to fight cavities, or do you brush your teeth too? Because it's the same concept. I mean, if truly God will prevent any harm from coming to you and you don't have to take any wise precautions or any, healthy practices in your life, then why brush your teeth? God will protect you from cavities. Well, none of us think that way. It's funny, in those little things like that, we have no problem brushing our teeth. But then all of a sudden, when a major pandemic hits, well, I'll just use faith to fight that. Well, that's kind of backwards. You don't use faith for the big things, and then don't use faith for the small things. Faith grows. If you don't have faith in the small things, you're probably not going to really have faith in the big things. And so it's just kind of funny sometimes the way we get. But this psalm is addressing the attitude of the heart. I trust in God for protection. I'm not going to let my heart get worried and run in fear. And so anyway, then he goes on in verse 2. Verse 2 says this, the wicked are stringing their bows and fitting their arrows in bowstrings. They shoot from the shadows at those whose hearts are right. And the reality is that righteous people will always be targeted. When you're going to stand for what's right, you are going to be targeted, and it's often going to feel like the world is against you. And I think any of us that can relate to this, if we've taken a stand for Christ at our school or in our workplace, we've had people say and do some pretty awful things to us, and that's just a reality. And the psalmist is experiencing this here. For verse 1, he's going to stand in faith. He makes a statement of faith, and then he realizes that he has now become a target by the world around him. Verse 3 then, oh my goodness, how can we relate to this? The foundations of law and order have collapsed. What can the righteous do? And I think that's often how we feel in our nation. I mean, you look and is there any politician we can trust anymore that doesn't have some underlying agenda? Is there any politician you can actually trust that what they say is actually true, that isn't manipulating the facts and the numbers to further their agenda or their cause? And I don't know that I can confidently answer that yes. So the question then is, well, if there's no true law and order in our world, what can the righteous do? And ultimately, the answer to the psalm is we can remain faithful. That's where our trust in God comes in, that no matter what comes our way, even if the world crumbles around us, God will get us through. And he has purposes that he's accomplishing, and we can trust that his purposes are good, even though the things we may face in life are difficult. Verse 4 is now where he starts turning his attention to God. But the Lord is in his temple. The Lord still rules from heaven. And this becomes our strength. Knowing that God is in control, knowing that he is going to do what he says he will do, we can rest in that. It's like, there's a tornado warning, or there's a storm coming, and the children don't need to worry and panic when their dad's with them. He's going to take care of them. He's going to get them to the basement or get them to some place of safety, and he's going to hold them until the storm passes. And that's, as believers, maybe the one advantage we have in life over anyone else. We know that our Father is with us. Verse 5 says he watches everyone closely. God knows what's going on. Nothing surprises God. In the worst of life's circumstances, when life seems uncertain, we can take comfort in nothing has surprised God. He saw it coming. He's there with us. He's prepared. He's able to get us through. And then verse 6 goes on to remind us, eventually God will judge. He will bring all the wicked to justice. And if they don't repent and change, they will get what's coming to them. Which is why our job, our one focus is to stay faithful. Because God will also bring us justice when we stay faithful. We will be rewarded for the good things we do, the righteous things we do. Verse 7, I love this. For the righteous Lord loves justice. And that is something that should give us peace in times like this. That's Psalm 11 for you. Take a few minutes, read through the psalm, jot down your own thoughts, see what God's saying to you. Otherwise, hopefully soon, I'll be back with another video on Psalm 12. Have a good day.